Letters to Lelia, by Frances Rosenfeld. Chapter 5, Out There. We are going to wear our ceremonial robes, I assume? Seth entered Sarah's apothecary. Sarah was mixing perfumes. She and Sis had come up with the idea of creating a scent to match the lavender gauze and flower arrangements, even though the plant decorations were still in question on account of the dragon's appetite. The small shed was saturated with a clamor of floral scents, which shouted at each other so loudly one could no longer tell them apart. They all ended up in an overpowering blend, screeching in sharp tunes of lavender and hyacinth. Lilac tried to assert itself as a top note too, but it was trounced by the other two scents, and whimpered helplessly at the end of the lab table where its open vial resided. Good heavens! Open the louvers, you can cut the smell with a knife. Whatever it is you are working on right now, throw it away and never consider it again. Seth protested, stifled by the heavy fragrance. How can you even breathe in here? I'll never get this smell out of my clothes. It is a process, Sarah defended the obnoxious perfume, despite the fact that she fully agreed with her mentor, the scent could knock over a horse. Maybe you could lighten up on the hyacinth a bit? Seth suggested sweetly, breathing through her mouth so her olfactory nerves would be spared at least some of the affront. Sarah looked at her, got up and dumped the contents of her latest creation in the sink, and washed the test tubes, ready to start fresh. In the process, the potent smell was released at an even higher intensity, stirring irrepressible groans. What about the robes? She asked absent-mindedly. We are going to wear our robes, right? Seth asked again. Yeah, maybe, Sarah said. We are going to look a little out of place at the ceremony. Lily and Roberta suggested that maybe we would all feel more comfortable if we agreed on a black tie attire. It is an embassy ball after all. Roberta suggested we wore gowns. Seth repeated the phrase, to make sure she heard right. Just a thought, Sarah commented. I haven't worn a dress since before I joined the order. Any reason why I should consider doing it now? Seth asked, with a tinge of worry in her voice. I haven't either, but what's it going to hurt if we dress up a little for this occasion? Sarah asked with a wry smile on her face, just to enjoy the leader's reaction a minute longer. I assume you want us to get our hair done, too? A sophisticated updo, perhaps, with pearl accents? Seth continued, perfectly poised. I was leaning more towards natural flowers, gardenias, for instance, maybe a little sparkle. Sarah continued, trying very hard to squelch a smile. Does this outfit come with a personality change? Seth continued, unperturbed. It's not that terrible, Sarah continued teasing her. What would you do if you had to wear a gown? Lily wears them almost like uniform. Serves her right for choosing diplomacy as a career. Seth tried to change the subject, but Sarah, who still held a grudge over the critique of her perfume, continued mercilessly. I was thinking we could wear matching dresses, in a warm shade of mauve, you know, to stand out from the background. Or aqua, she went on, and open-toe sandals, the best for a beach ceremony, to let the sand in, Seth replied. Easy in, easy out, Sarah put an end to the subject. What happened to the shy redhead who wouldn't disrespect a fly? Seth asked, a little sad. Are you serious? That girl couldn't survive 2 days with your lot. Why, Sister Joseph alone? Sarah protested. Oh, dear. You unleashed the wrath. Seth started to speak, only to be instantly drowned by a Sister Joseph tirade, on the subjects of flawed character and general ineptitude. When the deluge subsided, Sarah continued, what is so wrong with a gown? It's just clothing. It's never just clothing, it is a way to present yourself to the world. I don't like this way to present myself to the world, Seth explained. Why? Sarah asked. Because it turns me into somebody else, Seth replied, and forces me into behaviors that I find confining. It restricts the choice of who I can be. How doesn't the habit restrict who you can be? It completely defines you as a sister of the order. Sarah continued, curious. It defines me as someone I want to be. The gown does not. Seth fussed, uncomfortable, and then chuckled. Although it might be worth the discomfort, just to see Roberta's outfit, she paused, with a mischievous smile. Maybe we should give this a thought. Only if you bring me a corsage, dear, Roberta replied through the interlink. I wouldn't want to deprive Sister Joseph of the privilege, Seth snapped back immediately. A second installment of Sister Joseph diatribes ensued. Thank goodness that dreadful smell subsided. Seth tried to change the subject. Are you sure we need the perfume? It is on the approved list, Sarah started, inadvertently stepping into one of the leader's danger zones. What else is on that approved list? The latter snapped. Mandatory subjects of conversation? Smiling standards? Walking velocity? I wouldn't want to be in defiance of any arbitrarily imposed rules. By all means, please bring me up to speed. Sarah took the opportunity to return to the dressing standards. What did you like to wear before you joined? She poked. What's it to you? The leader frowned and her eyes launched one of their legendary thunderbolts. Nothing whatsoever. I didn't realize this was such a touchy subject. Sarah stepped back from the conversation. Whatever was in fashion at the time, I can't remember exactly. It's been so long ago. Seth indulged her. I can't picture you in a dress. Sarah shook her head to chase away a conflicted image. Thank goodness for that, Seth mumbled, uncomfortable, and then turned the tables. I don't remember seeing you wear anything but khakis either. I'm in the field or in the lab all day. It makes sense, Sarah defended her fashion style. Because they don't restrict your movements and allow you to focus on what you are doing, not what you are wearing? Seth asked. Something like that, Sarah agreed. I used to wear dresses, though, and floral prints. She turned to the leader. There is nothing wrong with wearing a dress. She protested, in the name of women's fashions. No, Seth granted, after a pause. No, there is not. Landing Bay, Terra 2, July 7, 3245. Dear Lelia. If I close my eyes, I can see your mother sitting across the table from me, leaning back in her chair with a sparkle of curiosity in her eyes and the confidence not to take empty words for an answer. She was just like you back then, eager to find her way in the world, a very different Lily from the accomplished diplomat we have the privilege to call a friend today. We all experience crucial moments in our lives, when reality challenges our beliefs and we have to reevaluate our principles, our reason to exist, our very selves. Sometimes it's a change of perspective, a shifting of priorities, a fated encounter, and other times simply getting the answer to your question redirects life's purpose. As far as I can remember, Lily wanted to know what was out there, beyond the visible limits of the universe, and I think out there is the perfect metaphor for the story I am about to tell. I was born to a large family, the oldest of 5 girls, to my parents' dismay. Try as they might, they couldn't produce the boy tradition required, the one who was supposed to inherit the family's name and assets. Childbirth after childbirth, I saw my mother's demeanor grow more and more wretched in the face of what was considered the family shame, her inability to produce a male heir. My sisters and I were very close, begrudging our luck together and trying to stay out of sight in order to avoid the bitter snarls that came with the misfortune of being born to the wrong gender. The 5 of us didn't have much, but we shared everything. We played, laughed, built castles in the air, and tried not to think about our future. We snuck out into the open fields to play catch and make wildflower garlands, and we shared with each other everything we learned about the plant's properties and growing habits. A lot of my passion for horticulture was born in those days, out of the loving bond that I shared with my sisters. I was already 11 years old when my parents gave up on the hope of having a son, and because I was the oldest, and also too tall, strong and wayward, they cut up my hair and dressed me up as a boy. It may sound odd to you, but it was a fairly common custom in the area I was from for families without sons to have one of their daughters act like one. I cried for days at the loss of my beautiful tresses, so dark, thick and heavy that when I braided them the braids were thicker than my arm. Every day when I woke up, I washed my face and looked in the mirror to see a very sad boy stare back at me. The image in the mirror was my face, but not quite. There was nothing familiar about the furrowed brow and the piercing gaze behind those transparent eyes. It felt as if that person in the mirror had been born a boy and the girl me in front of the mirror never existed. My sisters started treating me differently. I had privileges now. I had become one of those upon whom fate had smiled. I didn't have to do the chores. I was free to move as I pleased, and I could voice my opinions at the table. I tried with all the strength and passion that I had to hold on to the sisterhood that was my most prized, my only possession. I ran after them out in the fields and tried to explain that I was the same person, that it wasn't my choice, that I valued our times together, but tradition was stronger than anything, stronger than sisterhood, stronger than shared experiences, stronger than our promise to each other. To them I was a boy now, and that instantly made me a stranger. In a very weird way, the privileges imparted by my apparent change of gender got completely annihilated by the loss of my cherished bond with my sisters. Days passed, then months, then years. I learned to walk tall, to stare, to talk back, to stand up and defend my honor, and every morning when I looked in the mirror, I saw a young man staring back at me, not sad anymore, but daring, strong and willful. I went to school and learned to read and count. I walked into the market as my father's equal. I attended the gatherings of the community of elders. I laughed at risky jokes and I partook in the spirits. For almost 7 years I was this person, this strange tall and beardless boy, and I became so at ease with my role that even the neighbors forgot that I'd been born a woman. When the 7th year arrived, and I approached the age of 18, my parents figured it was time to find me a husband, so they allowed my hair to grow and sewed me beautiful female garb, to ensure I attracted worthy suitors, but every time I looked into the mirror in the morning I saw a daring young man staring back at me, a man whose hair was allowed to grow long and reached all the way down to his waist now. For a whole year my sisters tried to give me a crash course in womanhood. They taught me how to walk, how to smile, how to lower my gaze, how to act obedient, but that daring young man in the mirror couldn't be taught submission to save his life, and no suitor in his right mind would take the challenge. My father was angry, my mother decried her continued martyrdom of shame and disappointment in her offspring, and to top it all, our village was at war. The eligible suitors had become fewer and my awkwardly ambiguous gender presence became increasingly contentious in the household. One morning my father came home from the market with a jubilant smile on his face and announced proudly to the family that he had found a man willing to marry me sight unseen. The house was immediately engulfed into an effervescent bubble of relief and contentment, as the preparations for my upcoming nuptials took flight. Very early the next morning I cut my hair short, dressed in male attire, took a last look in the mirror at that daring young man with the piercing eyes and joined the military. I was so deeply connected to my male identity that nobody even questioned whether I was a man or not. What woman with any sense would dare attempt such a thing? As luck would have it, our troop was embedded with a French battalion, whose commander figured out the gender switch, shrugged his shoulders, and said it didn't matter to him one way or the other. I left with that battalion when the war was over. I needed a new name, and because it wasn't given me, but I was free to choose it for myself, I wanted it to mean something, so I chose Seth, the third son of Adam and Eve, the one almost never talked about, born to replace Abel. This story happened many centuries ago, and what I thought would be a relatively short existence of paucity and struggle turned into the quite incredible story of my life, story even I have difficulty believing half the time. I didn't have any reason to dress up as a man in France, and I found I didn't really have a preference for the male attire. So in time I regained my identity as a woman and learned to remember that daring young man who used to look back at me from the mirror as my oldest, dearest and most faithful friend. For 13 years I was out there, seeing the world from a perspective that would never be my own, watching myself through a different person's eyes, seeing my life stripped of all the artifice one builds around oneself to span over the gaps in common sense, over defective logic and wounds too painful to examine. I was out there until I found out how to define my own meaning, how to organize my own moral code, and decide what I want to do with my life. I was encouraged to learn that daring and woman were not mutually exclusive terms, that out there women fight, and lead, and voice their opinions at the table. The experience of acting a different gender brought about almost all the beliefs and personal traits I have today, and I consider that first time when I looked in the mirror and saw a man, a stranger, the crucial moment of my life. Love, Seth.